The bear has been poked. It's time to wake up from our slumber
and stand together, united as one. One family, one body, one church.
We will not walk past the vulnerable.
Say nothing, do nothing, and turn a blind eye.
We are citizens of a great nation.
We are good Samaritans to our neighbors. You are not alone.
We are the largest unified voice in Canada. So we stand united. This is our rally cry. We are Christ to our nation. This is our battle cry. He shall have dominion from sea to sea and from the river unto the ends of the earth. Righteousness will reign. Justice will prevail. We are united.
Hello and welcome to the National Leadership Briefing. My name is Doug Sharpe and I will be your host for today. Welcome to you this Good Friday. It is good to have you with us. This Good Friday, we had a choice as to whether we were going to go ahead with the briefing or take the day off. Well, what I'd like to say is that we don't like taking days off here when it comes to serving you, but we do want to recognize the importance of this day. And for all of you out there that are just getting ready for the biggest weekend, really, from the history of the world, and we're going to be acknowledging and celebrating that. I just wanted to say that we are praying blessing over you, but we are continuing to do the work of the National Leadership Briefing. Glad you're with us. Now, for those of you who've been here before, you know that we are always going to start on the first Friday of every month, always start on time, and we're always going to go for no more than 1 hour. So you will be out of here on time today, even though I can tell you we've got an awful lot to cover, but we are going to do our best to move as quickly as we can through it. Now, don't worry, though, if you're first time on the call today and you're concerned about the speed with which we move through things here on the National Leadership Briefing, because if you are registered on the National Leadership Briefing website, if we have your email address and you received a link yourself to today's briefing, you will also receive a copy of the video of the briefing today in what we call the post-briefing notes. You're going to actually get a copy of today's briefing along with all of the resources that we reference on the briefing. Now, that's key moving forward because we are going to be sharing an awful lot of information immediately on the road ahead that you're going to need down the road. So make sure you get registered on the National Leadership Briefing website if somebody has shared this video with you. Okay, let's get right to it and then find out what it is that we are going to cover today on the briefing. First of all, we're going to start with an answer period segment. The answer period segment, for those of you who are new today, that is what happens when we see a question that gets answered more and more and more by people, and we kind of recognize that maybe there's a lack of understanding over a large cross-section of those we serve. We bring the question to the National Leadership Briefing and we answer it during what we call the answer period segment. Today, we're going to do that, and it's an awesome question for those of you that are new because it has to do with getting started right, understanding why we're here, what we want to achieve, and how we're going to achieve it right from square one. So we're going to start there. Then we've got a special mission debrief regarding the CPC Policy Convention. Now, again, for those of you who have been with us before, you know that we look for those opportunities on the horizon where we can exercise our combined influence as people who believe and come together and rally around the four pillars. We're looking for those opportunities where we can speak with one voice and advance the things that we believe in into society, culture, politics, and government. Well, we had one such opportunity again, and that was during this Conservative Party of Canada Policy Convention that just concluded this month. And we're going to do a debrief with people that I know you're going to recognize. They are some incredible leaders and mentors and coaches here in Canada. I'm going to save the names. I know you're going to love them because I know you love them, but I'm not going to tell you who they are. I'm just going to surprise you later on. But we're going to do a mission debrief on the policy convention. We're also going to do a training segment today on something called electoral district associations. It's important that when we come together, if we need to establish a foundation of knowledge and understanding about something in particular, an aspect of this or a component of that, we need to lay the foundation in the teaching format. So we're going to do that today, and we're going to speak to the issue of electoral district associations. So you're going to become somewhat of an expert on electoral district associations after today. And then we're going to take that knowledge and springboard into an understanding as to where we're at on the road to the next federal election. Many people will agree that we are in fact on the road, the short road to the next federal election. And you and I, again, will have an opportunity to speak with a combined voice, advancing the things that we believe in into the conversations that are going to take place during that election. So that is our next focus here after, of course, today's briefing. Now, and then finally, at the very end, we're going to head over to my desk because I have a special announcement to make about something kind of exciting here on the National Leadership Briefing. And I want to close with that. Again, not going to tell you about it until the end. So stick around right till then, and we will have some fun sharing some good news with you. All right, well then let's get started. We've got a lot to cover, and we're going to start, like I say, up at the board, that board right there, with the answer period segment for today. Talk to you shortly. Okay, it's good to be here in the boardroom again. Thank you so much for your attention. Now, of course, for those of you who've been here before, you know, I love it here. And I love it here because this is where we up our game. This is where we drill and train and become better. And when, of course, we have an opportunity for us to answer a question here as well, then I always appreciate doing that. Well, today the question is about getting started right. And some folks out there, and actually more than it's kind of showed a bit of a weak link in our training. Some of the folks out there end up going on a couple of briefings and they kind of the feeling like they're getting left behind. They're not quite sure what we're doing here. So I want to take just a moment here to answer the question for those people is that, how do I know? How do I make sure that I'm getting started right? Like, where do I start? What do I do? Well, I'm going to just start out first off in making sure that we're clear on one thing is that whatever you are doing now, wherever you are serving now, I want to make sure that you stay there, that you stay where you are, and you know that whatever is about to happen here on the National Leadership Briefing does not involve me coming into your world and taking you away from what you're doing and dragging you off to someplace else. And I have to say that that wasn't always the case. Like when I actually started doing this and encouraging people to engage years ago, I used to actually like take them from where they were and drag them out on places like the political battlefield of all places where they got creamed right away. And what I realized is that all of your anointing, your safety, your protection, your skill set, everything that is about you exists where you're at. So wherever you're at, I want to serve you there. So now I come to you. The National Leadership Briefing comes to you. So if you feel like you are feeling like you're getting tugged away from what you're doing, then we're doing it wrong here on the National Leadership Briefing. So stay where you're at. Also, I want you to know that in the beginning, I encourage people to search their heart for a desire to be in relationship with people who share your views and values. That is a key component. Maybe you are where you're at, but you're alone. Maybe you're where you're at these days with all the lockdowns and the separation of everybody. Maybe you're by yourself and you don't have that connection. Well, I want you to seed in your heart the desire to seek out and identify people who share your views and values, people like you that believe the same things you do about, of course, here we're going to go again. Here's the 4 pillars about, say, the parent's authority. So maybe you believe that parents should have the right to raise your children the way you want. Well, I'll tell you, there's a lot of people out there that share those views and values related to parental authority, and they want to also raise their kids in the way that they want to do it. So go out and seek out those people and desire to be in relationship with them. That's a key component of getting started right. Now, when I talk about you though, when I start talking about you, we also have this teaching template that we introduce people to very early on. And that is, and by the way, just to give you an example, this is one teaching template. We use other teaching templates here. I've got a teaching template here. You're going to see this one if you haven't already seen it. This is a teaching template that talks about, again, you. That's self, you, and talks about you in relationship to your family, the church, and civil government. So we do talk an awful lot about you here. But again, you're staying in your same place. You've seated your heart with a desire to be in relationship with people who share your views and values. But when it comes to you, I want you to actually also establish yourself in a very specific place. You can see between these arrows, all these arrows here pointing out, it's got you kind of positioned in a certain place. Wherever you're at and wherever you're supposed to be, that's you right there. But you are aligned, and this is the important part, aligned with God's views on things. So as long as wherever you're at is in alignment with God's views, that's where you should be, and that's where I want to serve you. You're also in relationship. This arrow points over to somebody that is lateral to you, that you have identified to be a friend, coach, mentor, somebody that you've given permission to actually speak into your life, that you actually say, okay, wait a second, I'm going to actually participate on the national leadership briefing, but I'm going to have somebody walk it with me that I actually trust. So I actually have people that I say, establish yourself in relationship with, that you give permission to speak into your life and say, look, I'm going to go on the national leadership briefing. I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to learn all about the 4 pillars. And I want you to actually watch me do it. And just if you see anything, if there's anything doesn't seem right, or it seems like it's out of whack or something, maybe this is your pastor, maybe it's your wife or your husband, whoever it is, have somebody come with you, and just so you can kind of talk back and forth and go, I don't know about that Doug Sharpe guy, or maybe it's something that we talk about on the briefing. I want you to have somebody that you trust that can coach you, mentor you, and speak with you and walk with you on this. Now, these arrows here go in a different direction, but they're all, again, intended to help position you in the right place. These are arrows that draw your attention towards what we call your authorities. So we want you to understand, as you stay where you are, seed your heart with a desire to be in relationship with other people, align yourself with the will of God, putting yourself in relationship with a coach and a mentor that can walk the road with you. We want you to understand and learn your authorities, those authorities like citizen authority, constituent authority, political party authority if you want, and then also kingdom authority. So that coach and mentor, if that's a pastor, for example, they can help you understand kingdom authority. If you walk with us, we'll help teach you your citizen authority. But it is definitely you taking some attention as to where you're at. Now, why are you so important as the starting point for the National Leadership Briefing and coming on the National Leadership Briefing? Well, it turns out, and this is the great news, is that you are at the center of something called a sphere of influence. Your sphere of influence has you at the center. Now, you might go, I don't have a sphere of influence. I don't influence anybody. You'd be surprised how many people, if you aren't already aware of the fact you're influencing them, you definitely are, just by your presence in their midst. So we actually talk about you because you are the center of a sphere of influence that we want you to be aware of, because what we're going to do is, on the National Leadership Briefing, is that we're going to identify the things that are important to us all, like a parent's right to raise their children the way they want, like our right of belief and freedom of religion, like the requirement of the people that we elect to make policies and laws that protect the vulnerable. And finally, we believe that our children and their the future should be secured by today's government. In other words, it's inappropriate for government to spend money today that they are going to have to pay for in the future. Those are the 4 pillars, and we want you to advance those ideas into your sphere of influence just by being in relationship with it and sharing what you learn here on the National Leadership Briefing. So you're clear on that? That's your sphere of influence. We also believe that you can be a key helper at your local citizen action group ministry within your local church. Now, you may not have a citizen action group ministry in your local church. We teach you. We teach your pastor. We teach your church leaders. We teach you how to do all of that. But that's one of the reasons why it's so important that you are in the right place, positioned correctly, staying where you're at with a desire in your heart to be in relationship with other people. We also want you to be in relationship with the National Leadership Brief on an ongoing basis, because what we do here is we scan the horizon nationally. See, you're not alone. You're not alone in your views of the 4 pillars. You're not alone in your view that as a parent, you want to raise your child the way you want. You have thousands and thousands of other Canadians across the country that you're networked with through the National Leadership Briefing, and we're all looking for the opportunity to raise the priority or the profile of the things that we believe in into these different spheres. And that's what the National Leadership Briefing does for you. It's not to steer, direct, or tell you what to do. It's just to keep us all connected nationally, like across the country, so that we have a greater voice, because we speak to these things with a combined voice, with one voice. And when there's lots of us speaking together about our right of belief, and freedom of religion and the importance of that in our lives, then we have a bigger, when it comes time to speak to them, especially like we're going to talk about in a little bit, we're going to talk about election time. We're going to talk about how we can speak with one voice at an election time and have a significant impact on the conversation during that time. So I hope that's helpful in you, as getting started right involves you staying where you are, planting a seed in your heart with a desire to be in relationship, positioning yourself in alignment with what God wants for your life, finding a mentor or coach to walk this road with you, just to keep talking locally. It's not all coming in from Doug. You've got people locally that you're trusting, and then you aligning yourself also with an understanding of your authorities and getting into the training and teaching of the National Leadership Briefing, so we can take advantage of all of these opportunities across the nation that are actually going to be coming up in front of us. We want to capitalize on the opportunities. Now, before I finish up here, I'm going to talk real quickly about, and just close with this, is that we've identified pitfalls of why people fall away from the National Leadership Briefing. We've actually been doing this long enough and talked to enough people to understand a little bit about some of the reasons and primary reasons why they fall away. The first one is that they actually don't see the strategy of the 4 pillars. They see the 4 pillars they came from you. They came from people like you. We've interviewed people and identified that these are the 4 priorities of the majority of the people that share your views and values. And these are probably important to you, but they also don't understand the key strategic reasons why we should advance these. Well, stick around long enough and you'll find out what these reasons are. You'll see the strategy of what it is that we're advancing unveiled before you, but you got to stick around long enough to grab a hold of it. So people fall away too soon before they see the strategy. The second reason is that they don't know firsthand of the opportunities that there are on the horizon for all of us to speak together to these things. They don't know that we're going to have an election coming up, and that the advantage that we'll have when we speak with one voice to the issues that are discussed during that election. They just miss it. They haven't stuck around long enough for that. And then finally, this is a key one, especially these days, they don't understand the significance of the threats that are on the horizon as well. See, we've got those great opportunities, but opportunities and threats tend to walk down that road side by side sometimes, and we've got to see them both coming. So what we do, again, at the National Leadership Briefing is when we see a threat to parental authority, or when we see a threat to our right of belief, or maybe there's a law like Bill C-7, the euthanasia law that just went through the House of Commons, when we see vulnerable people being placed at risk, we bring these threats to your attention. So again, we can speak with one voice and in a unified way and provide better resistance or protection or whatever it is that we need to do to respond to these threats. But remember, not seeing the strategy, not seeing the opportunity, and not understanding the threats, those are the reasons why people fall away from the briefing. But I'll tell you, all in all, if you do fall away and you maybe miss a few briefings, I want you to know something. You're welcome back anytime. You are welcome back anytime, and we won't even ask you where you've been. We'll just welcome you back, because we're excited to have you here, and we're excited to have your voice added to ours, with us all speaking together with this authority that we can have corporately across the nation to advance the things that we believe in into society, culture, politics, and government. It's not all about politics. We want to be talking to our neighbor as well about the things that are important to us, and we're going to deal with all of that on the road ahead. So thank you so much for this particular answer period segment. Is so important to me because I really want you to be started right. I want you to understand why we're here, and I want you to know the importance that you play in all of us achieving these goals on the road ahead. We're glad you're here. Anytime you can be here, we're glad you're here. Okay, well, all right, we're going to move on to the next segment here. I'm going to introduce you to some really awesome people, but I got to go get positioned back at the desk here to do that. So just enjoy this video, and we will talk shortly. These are the things that we believe in. First, that parents have the right to raise their children the way they want. Second, that those we elect to serve us in civil government must respect and defend our right of belief and freedom of religion. Number three, that the laws and policies of civil government must provide for the safety and security of the citizens, especially the vulnerable among us. And number four, that it is inappropriate to heap debt upon the backs of our children and future generations. They came from you. They're your pillars. They're the things that you believe. Okay, one of the best parts about doing what I do is I get to hang around with some pretty cool people. And I tell you, lately, we have been spending quite a bit of time with these two people in particular. As you know, on the National Leadership Briefing, we're always looking for, like I say, those opportunities where we can speak with a unified voice into conversations that are taking place in various realms. And so we have had an opportunity recently to work with other leaders from across the nation to advance the four pillars and the things that we believe in into a policy discussion taking place within a political party. And that, of course, is the Conservative Party of Canada, where they've just completed their policy convention. And so we are going to do a debrief today. We're going to actually spend some time talking about what happened. I mean, how did it all go, and do a little bit of a debrief with them. So let me introduce them to you now. Come on here. Let's just see who we've got, the top secret superstar guest we have today. Well, hey, and here we are with our surprise guest for today. We've got Faytine from My Canada and Scott Hayward from Right Now, the organization that we've been working with. Both these organizations we've been working with all the way along. Thank you guys for joining us today.
Oh, it's always a pleasure, Doug.
Yeah, thanks for having us on, Doug.
Good to be talking to you again. Now, we had an exciting time here just recently. A lot of people engaging, a lot of people participating, some that had never done it before. I wanted to have you on because I really wanted to get your feedback and do a bit of a debrief with you. What is it that you saw? What got you excited? Is there any work that's left to be undone or left undone that we got to go back and do? Faytine, why don't you kick us off?
Well, if I could say this, Doug, I remember I kind of tapped you on the virtual shoulder right before we went into our briefing call, right before the convention. And I remember saying, Doug, has this ever happened before where this many like-minded groups have come together, just laid down their name tags, laid down their agendas, and just said, for the cause of making Canada better, let's work together. And I think your response was, no. So just to say this, I am so excited, not just about the number of new people that got involved in the process, but the fact that this is happening, that groups that were independent organizations, but we respect each other. We're on the same page on a lot of issues, and we have some differences too, but we're working together for the betterment of our nation. I think that's spectacular.
Exactly. That's great. And Scott, any observations, exciting things that you saw happen, lay down?
Well, I share that with 18. I think that's absolutely fantastic that a bunch of our organizations were able to get together and to work together on this convention. And it sounds like a few of us, and hopefully more of us, will continue to do so as time goes on. Besides getting like over 85% of the policies through that we wanted through, and the constitutional amendments to go our way, the way that they went. A big one for me was that we were able to get such a large number of people who share our values onto the National Council for the Conservative Party of Canada. That's more or less the board of directors for the Conservative Party of Canada. And I think I can speak for the three of us on here. We try to find candidates who not only share our values on a number of issues, but also are people who are collaborative and want to work not only with us, but with their fellow national councillors. We want to find people who are building bridges and building up the movement and not tearing things down. And I think we were really successful in that. We're going to see that going forward. So I thought that was a huge win for all of us that were working on that convention together.
Oh, I agree with you, Scott. That is such an encouragement moving forward. Fatine, you mentioned before that about the chat room that you were in. One of the things I saw was this coming together of people and this excitement, the buzz going on of people who had never worked together before, and they're talking while the convention's going on. Tell us some of the things you might have experienced in the chat room there.
Well, it was so much fun, just tons of enthusiasm. That specific group chat that we put together just on people's phones, they were talking the whole time, you know, when different ones would be presenting their policy proposals, you know, there would be chatter going on about whether or not people liked it or didn't like it or why or how they were voting. And it was like this constant scrum that was happening throughout the whole convention. And it was just so positive. And it was so amazing because you could see people feeling excited about having a voice in the process. And I was thinking about how, you know, every week we're talking about a different issue on our TV show. And it's like, we're just talking and people are watching the shows and they're getting stirred up, but they always say, what can I do to be a part of the change? Well, this was a contact point where people were actually getting to be a part of the process. Three of the policies that I was really excited about that got passed, the adoption policy, you know, that a Conservative Party will support initiatives to help make adoption easier. The free speech on campuses, hello, pushing back against cancel culture. You know, that was an amazing policy that passed with an overwhelming majority. And then, of course, the assisted suicide policy, saying that that the Conservative Party will not support any more expansion to assisted suicide to the mentally ill and to children. You know, these were amazing policies and people were excited to be able to say, yeah, I support that. And they're a part of making history by helping see those things get passed. It's amazing.
Yeah,
and now we just got to get laws passed out of it too.
That's right. Well, we're going to keep showing up for work every day. I know you guys are too. So that's great. We'll work on that. Now, Scott, you after the convention, you are a great communicator. Your organization does fantastic work in really educating, bringing people up to a level of understanding. I think that is top drawer. And you put together a blog post that was quite outstanding. Can you just tell us a little bit about that?
Sure, and thank you for the kind words, Doug. I really appreciate that. You know, Alyssa and myself, we work really hard to try to, like you said, educate and provide information to people on, you know, what the political process is, including for policy conventions, which is something we just went through a couple of weeks ago that we're discussing here today. So yeah, you can check it out on our website. It startsrightnow.ca/blog, and then at the top you can click on the blog, and it's the first one. And it's called Who Are These People? Because that's something that a lot of people were asking, you know, who are these people? I've never heard of these people before that are applying to be delegates in my EBA that are doing all these things. And like Fatine was saying, like we had such a groundswell of people who want to get involved in the process, and it was great. And so that blog post kind of goes through the history of it. It goes through the history of when our organizations and a bunch of others got together back in the autumn of 2020, and the step-by-step process and how we all came together and all the things that we did to ensure that we were able to accomplish what we did the other weekend at the policy convention. One other thing there is that that is a common question that's still going to continue to this day, because it's something that we want to take this momentum and go forward and make sure the people who share our values, you know, are taking the rightful place in the political process, whether it be on your local EDA, maybe for a campaign for an upcoming election or something like that. But it's always important to remember, and maybe Fatine can speak to this as well, that you are representing other people who share your values. So you always want to be gracious. You always want to be kind. You always want to be someone who is relatively easy to work with. You know, that's kind of the reputation that I think the three of us, hopefully I can speak for the three of us, that we're trying to cultivate here, is that yes, we do have certain values and we want to ensure those values are represented in policy and of course in the House of Commons, the Senate, and our courts and everything. But at the same time, you know, we can work with others who might not exactly share our values, but try to find that big part of that Venn diagram. Make that Venn diagram as big as possible, reach out and just be a good, happy worker to work with alongside with those others in whether it's the Conservative Party of Canada or other political parties as well.
Excellent. Fatine, you want to add to that?
Yeah, and I'm actually giggling because I remember in the training, Doug, how you said that it was that awesome statement where you said, hey, if you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong. And I know you've said that on the training here before, but just to say that, like, obviously we're excited about all the people getting involved. We're excited about the wins with those great policies. But we do need to remind ourselves to be gracious, statesmanly, stateswomenly winners, right? Because it's true. A lot of people, they've been involved with the party for 30, 40 years. And there's this kind of group that's coming in. We love Canada. We want to be a part of the change that our nation needs. But there's kind of this like shock of like, who are these people? And are they scary? Are they coming to take over? And we want to diffuse that by just being ourselves, just make sure as you get involved at the EDA level, as you put your name forward to be on the board, as you go to the next policy convention, let's just remember that the right thing done in the wrong way is the wrong thing, but the right thing done in the right way is beautiful. And so let's be kindness with skin on. Let's continue to get involved in shaping things for the betterment of future generations. But let's make sure that we're being a fragrance of, I'll call it nice. So when people say, who are these people? They say, oh, those are the nice people who love Canada and get involved.
Awesome. Faitine, well, that's such an excellent commentary to leave it at. I want everyone to remember that particular part. I appreciate so much everything that you did during convention. I loved working with you guys. I look forward to doing it again. I know there's some work left to do, so we're going to come back and do it all again, right? We're committed?
Oh, absolutely, 110%.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot for spending time with me today. I look forward to seeing you again.
Thanks, Doug.
Okay, so let's make sure that in the post-briefing notes today, we look for those resources that we just referenced. Of course, first, I want you to get to know who these mentors and coaches are nationally. These are the people that know what they're talking about. And I can tell you right now, I've been around for a long time and I've seen people come and go. And this group of people, and I'm saying there's a few of them out there that I would say are leaders in this area of catalyzing a conversation into the political realm and actually executing a strategy. And these are two of the top. This is the top tier coaches and mentors. So I encourage you to take a look at the post-briefing notes for information as to how you can stay in touch with them. And then also, I want to make sure, again, that you look for that report that Scott and Alyssa from Right Now, the organization, did this fantastic summary I mentioned. And I want you to have a copy of that so you can see point by point what was accomplished during that policy and governance convention with the Conservative Party of Canada. Okay, let's now dovetail off of that into the conversation about what we're going to be doing on the road ahead. And we talked about this briefly, the electoral district associations, or EDAs, they're called, Electoral District Associations. So let's start there with just, again, confirming our understanding of what is an electoral district. Okay, so you've got in Canada, you've got the whole country's cut up into these pieces. There are 338 of them. And what you do is you elect representatives from each of these representative areas. They're your geographic areas in the country. You live in one here in Canada, and you have an electoral district all around you. Now, why is that important to know? Well, within that electoral district, you've got electoral district association boards for each of the political parties out there. So the federal Liberals will have an electoral district association board. The federal Green Party, the federal Conservative Party, all of them have these boards. They're made up of people. There's usually around 30 of them, 30 individuals that are elected from the members of each of the parties. So in my riding, for example, there might be like 1,000 or 1,100 members of the, say, Conservative Party. Now, of those members, they elect a board of directors. Now, their job in each of the parties and each of the boards is to elect their person, their representative, to be that representative for that electoral district in the government. So if you think about your riding as to who your member of parliament is, if it's a Liberal member of parliament, then that Liberal member of parliament has a board of directors, and they do all sorts of things to just keep that member of parliament either reelected, if that's the plan, or maybe they don't have a member of parliament there, they just have a candidate and they want to get their Liberal member of parliament elected. So these boards do things like fundraise for elections, to get ready for elections. They also do things like membership drives to try and grow the party membership in each of these ridings. Or they might do things like they might send out newsletters newsletters from the Member of Parliament to the members, just keeping people up to date as to what's happening in Ottawa. So it's kind of a board of directors that have various objectives and goals, but really for the most part, I want you to think of it in terms of communications of a message. There's a message that individual that they're supporting wants to send out to people, but the fundraising is key, and also the membership is key. So money, kind of an important, message really important, and membership really important. That's what their three focuses are primarily for within each of these electoral district association boards. Now, what we encourage people to do here at the National Leadership Briefing is because we're all about engagement and advancing the four-pillar message, is that we encourage people to reach out beyond themselves and identify which one of these parties or individuals are you most aligned with, your views and values. Find out who that person is, find out which party that is locally, and then get engaged in what's going on with the local electoral district association board. Now, why is that so important moving forward, and why are we focusing on it as a priority? Well, there's obviously within each of these ridings and these boards, there's an opportunity for us to engage in conversations about the four pillars with the candidate and the Member of Parliament. So we think about it is that you are very stereotypical of a segment of the population in your electoral district. Your views and values are shared by people all around you in your communities. And you might think, well, I'm all alone and I don't think no, wait a second. There's a lot of people that think the way you do, and you can bring that understanding to the table of the Electoral District Association Board and share those views with the candidate or the Member of Parliament. That is a valuable tool, not only for us, but it's also a valuable tool for the Member of Parliament or the candidate to have access to that flow of feedback from the community. So if things are happening in the community that you feel the candidate or Member of Parliament needs to know, believe me, they want to hear from. Now, they want to hear from you, though, in a very polite and disciplined way. They don't want you lighting your hair on fire and coming through the door and slamming your fist on the table going, that's completely wrong or whatever. No, they want to know that you guys are all allied together, you're all working together, and you want to make sure that you want to establish a respectful relationship with them and establish that line of communication with them. So that's the opportunity we have and they have that is mutual. It's a mutually beneficial opportunity. Another thing that you might want to do locally is once you do find that local person that does either share your views and values or is willing to represent your views and values as an elected official, you might want to actually give them money because they're raising money out there, or you might want to help them raise money. That is a function of the board, and that's something you might be able to help with. You also might be able to help with them by getting other people to grow the membership of the Electoral District Association. So there's lots of opportunities for you to serve and to help, but you got to find out which one of the political parties and which one of the candidates best represents your views and values or is willing to represent your views and values. Now, I got to give you a little bit of a warning here before you go jumping into this whole thing is that if you are looking for somebody that is 100% allied with your views, then you're going to be disappointed because there are no perfect candidates. I'm just telling you that right now. And there are no perfect political parties out there. So if you're just looking for the, Doug Sharpe political party, it doesn't exist out there. Political parties are big structures. They sometimes refer to them as tents. They say, hey, it's a big tent. And there are a lot of different views in there. And the idea is that you want to get engaged and get involved and get under the tent so that you can engage in the conversations along with everybody else and share your ideas back and forth and gather support around your ideas. See, this is where the diplomacy comes in political parties. Is some people, I don't like getting in there and fighting and all that stuff. You know something? I've been doing this for 20 years and I've never gotten a fight with anybody. Like, I just don't fight with people because I understand that when I enter a room with my ideas and my views and values, that there are other people out there that have competing views and values. And so what we want to do once we get in there is we want to get in there and help people to understand our perspective, and we want to hear from them, and they want to have us understand theirs. Now, sometimes what they think isn't palatable to us. That's just a fact of the matter. That is true. But we want to stay engaged in the conversation, because the minute we leave the room or walk out of the tent, and I'm just telling you this, you take 100% of your influence with you when you do it. Again, the minute you walk out of the room or leave the tent, you are taking all of your influence with you when you do that, and you leave others to decide what it is that's going to happen within that political party and possibly within government on the road ahead. So that's why we engage. That's why we participate, is because we want to bring our ideas forward. Okay. So this is why if we can establish a path from where you are now to actually having you take a seat on one of these electoral district association boards, where you regularly have access to not only the ear of the candidate or the member of parliament, but you also have access to opportunities to serve that individual and the interests of the party. That's true. That definitely, once you find the party that's most closely aligned with your views and values, it is an opportunity to serve. So that's what you want to get connected with that. Then we now have a good reason for you to move forward, because what are we carrying with us? Well, we're carrying with us the message of the 4 pillars. And can you imagine if out of 338 ridings, you see that picture on the wall back there? That's Canada, all broken up into different colors. Those are different political parties and where the members of parliament are, and from the different, and there's 338 of them. What would happen if we all of a sudden came forward from all across Canada and all together said to our candidates and our members of parliament, you know what? We really believe that there's a large population of individuals within our communities that really want to see the authority of parents protected, the authority of parents to raise their children the way they want. And if we all spoke across Canada about that one thing, parental authority, we would have an impact. Well, that's what we're teaching everyone to do across the nation, is to carry with us into these electoral district associations the message of the 4 pillars. Let people know that in your community, the right of belief and freedom of religion for all citizens is valuable and should be considered and should be prioritized when they go to Ottawa to consider legislation. Another thing that we have to think about as well, though, is we have to think about is that they may disagree. And how does that work now when you're involved in the Electoral District Association? It's the one that most closely aligns with your views and values, but you arrive at a moment in time where you disagree. Well, we're also going to teach you to navigate that as well. But I can tell you that conversation is always going to be grounded or founded on a platform of respect and congeniality. And it's like the Bible says, let your gentleness be evident to all. There's no lighting our hair on fire. Okay, now that's enough on electoral districts for now, because I just wanted to introduce you to the fact that they exist on this national leadership briefing. We're going to do more teaching about it later, but again, we're going to dovetail into, now we're heading towards a federal election. So we've got a federal election coming up real soon on the horizon. And I tell you, most people are thinking it could be even like May, like that soon, but we'll find out soon enough. But what do we do now that we've got the 4 pillars? We're looking for those people that are closely aligned with our views and values on the political landscape, with whatever party, whatever candidate, whatever member of parliament. And we've got our 4 pillars. We've got these things that we believe in. What is the best way to advance them into the conversations that take place around election time? Well, that's what we're going to talk about next, right after this brief video. So stick around, because this election is pivotal in the destiny of our nation, and you can be a big part of influencing the future. Okay, so watch this video and we'll get back right away and we'll continue the conversation. Bye for now. Okay, so elections. Now, before I get started about elections, whenever I put up a template that perhaps you've seen before, I want to just remind you of a gentleman by the name of Vince Lombardi, who, if you don't know that name, he was one of the winningest football coaches of all time in the National Football League. Now, the story is told over and over again that it was the 1961 season. It was training camp, the beginning of the year, and the Green Bay Packers, the team that he had coached the year previous, had come off of this brutal loss to the Philadelphia Eagles. So it was the championship game for all the marbles. It was right down to the final game of the whole season, and the Green Bay Packers lost in the 1960 season. So you've got these veteran players that are coming back to the 1961 training camp to start that season off. And Vince Lombardi, the coach, gets up in front. This is a man who believed in football. He lived his entire life in football, but he believes so strongly in the fundamentals and the need to be clear about things. So he held up a football in that famous training camp meeting, and he said, "Gentlemen, this is a football." And that is where they started that season training camp, with an understanding of what the football is all about to these individuals who had gone all the way to the playoffs the year before. Now, just by the way, to complete that story, Vince Lombardi, when I say he went on to be one of the greatest football coaches in the history of the game, from 1961 on, he never lost another playoff game again. This was the beginning of a massive surge for him, and he became, like I say, the winningest coach. So when I say, everyone, this is a template, it's because we've been here before. We're going to be here again, and we're going to keep coming back to it because this is foundational. This is a fundamental, important truth about elections, and that's what we're about to talk about. We need to all understand a couple of things about elections is that, first off, governments have not only no money, they have no authority except for the authority that is transferred to them from the individuals at election time. This arrow here represents, on our teaching template, the transference of authority at election time to civil government to perform feats of great governmental skill for the betterment of all. That is what the intention is that they need combined authorities from all of the citizens to act on everyone's behalf for the betterment of us all. Now, of course, we know that sometimes civil government gets that wrong. Oftentimes, more often than not, they get that wrong, but the only way that they can act is if we transfer that authority, and it is transferred through the form of a mandate. Now, where a mandate comes from is that these political parties and candidates put up their vision of the nation and the country, and they tell everybody about all the things they're going to do. And then when we vote to support those things, that is to become their mandate to govern. That is what they're supposed to do. And again, I'm not naive. I know that governments have oftentimes over time said they're going to do one thing and done something else. So, I mean, there's all sorts of other checks and balances we could talk about later, but we're talking about today the transference of our authority corporately to government to act on our behalf after the election. Okay, so just to be clear on that. So I'll take that away and let's get into the nitty gritty of it here. A little bit more, something more specific. All right. So in the transaction of transferring the authority from the individual to either the candidate or the party that you are hoping that is going to actually establish the government after winning, in that transaction, I've encouraged everyone and trained everyone to understand that it is a negotiation between two individuals or two entities or two parties, and you are negotiating for what? You're negotiating for support. That's what they want. They want, the candidate and the party wants your support in the form of a vote, which you possess. So you hold the vote and they want it. Now, this is really important and foundational to know, because over and over and over again over time, I have seen individuals who, even though that is the fact of the matter, what I've just described, they just give away their support. they get together in groups of people, and then they run into one candidate who gets them all googly eyed, and they decide, oh, I really like this candidate. And they just go, here it is. There you go. Here's my support. And the sad part about that is that you're giving up this golden opportunity to negotiate for your support. So the most important thing for me at election time to communicate to you is that understand that this is a point of negotiation when elections come along. It is the perfect time for us to negotiate for what it is we want from government for our vote. So if we do execute a strategy effectively and properly and are tactical in our approach to it, we can actually negotiate things to come out of it that are for the betterment of the community. Of course, what is it that we want? Well, really, what is it that we want? What do we talk about all the time? Well, we want parents' right to raise their kids the way they want, preserved and protected. We want our right of belief and freedom of religion defended by the person who's going to sit in government. We want children protected, our future of our children protected, and fiscal stewardship of the money. We want it done well. We also want vulnerable citizens protected. So we've got all these things that we want, and they want our vote. So we need to begin this process by acknowledging we are in a negotiation and that we are going to exchange commitments as the foundation of the transfer of that authority for them to get our support. Let me explain what I mean by exchange commitments. Okay, a candidate, when they stand up at election time and they give you the list of all the things that they're going to do, and the party tells you all the things they're going to do, what they often don't do is they just tell you things without making the commitments. So what we say to our people that we coach and train on the National Leadership Briefing is, don't ask your candidates and your parties to make promises to you. Ask them specifically and say, I'd like to hear your commitment statement related to that. So if you have something to say to me and you want to make a promise, I appreciate that, but I'm a commitment person. So what are you going to commit to? If you're not going to say, stand up against the euthanasia, the expansion of euthanasia, what can you commit to? That's what we want to know, is from our candidates. And then what you do is, after they make those commitment statements, you are then in turn going to say whether or not you're going to exchange your vote for their commitment statement. So you are saying, they say, I'm going to commit to this, and you say, I'm going to commit to supporting you and voting for you, and you exchange those commitments. That is the negotiated settlement of the transaction between the two of you. And if you listen for the commitment statements and you don't get them, then you can't really exchange or commit your vote to that person until such time as they do. Now, you might say, Doug, I'm only one person. I only have one vote. That's why we come together on the National Leadership Briefing, and all across the nation at the same time, we're all out there going, I'm going to need a commitment statement. I'm going to need a commitment statement. I'm going to need a commitment statement. Oh, okay, wait a second. Euthanasia, you can't make a commitment statement about doing something about that. What can you commit to? And we keep asking them. We keep asking them to make those commitment statements, because they are the things that matter most to us corporately. So when we're in this opportunity here, again, aligned with God's view on things, in relationship with our coach, understanding our authorities, we are standing there as a citizen with a vote, ready to negotiate a settlement of a transaction with the exchange of commitments. That's an election. Now, that may be new to you. You maybe have never heard it explained that way before, but I think that's one of the reasons why we so often miss this golden opportunity to stand up together corporately and ask for the same thing at the same time. So as we start moving down the road towards an election, how does that play out when we have a candidate standing in front of us? Well, let me tell you a story about an opportunity I had recently when I attended a church in a town in Alberta. I went to a town in Alberta, and while I was at that church, the pastor said, there is a person in the room right now that wants to stand up and run in a local election in their town, and they want to be a city councilor. And Doug, would you come up and just speak for a moment about that? And I came up to the front and I took the microphone in my hand and I said, okay, look, I just want to ask a couple of questions of the candidate first. And I turned and I looked at the candidate and I said, I'm going to ask you if you can make some commitments in front of all these people here that you obviously are going to want to get their support from. Will you commit that when you are in this position, you will not disrespect the right of parents to raise their children the way they want? And he said, I commit. And I said, would you also commit now? Would you commit in front of everybody here that you will respect and defend their right of belief and freedom of religion? In other words, you're not just going to just respect it. You're going to, if you see it under attack, you will stand up and defend it in front of everyone else. And he said, I commit. And I said, will you hold as a priority the safety and security of the vulnerable that live among us in our communities, in your job and your task working at the city? And he said, I commit. And I said, would you also begin the work immediately of removing the burden of debt off the backs of our children and future generations? And he said, I commit. Now, you might say to me, Doug, come on, they're going to say that. They're going to say whatever they're going to say. But I turned to everybody in the room and I said, when was the last time you heard any politician or any candidate ever say that to you, that they committed to the things that this individual here just committed to? It's pretty rare air. Nobody'd ever heard it before. Nobody'd ever heard somebody be asked directly these questions and have to make commitments in front of everybody. Now, of course, I'm also then going to ask the candidate if they put it in writing. That's an important part of that process too, is once they say it, that's one thing, but now we're going to need you to see that on your literature, and we're going to need to see that in your campaign communications. Now, why do we want that? Because we're raising the profile of the 4 pillars as they advance them on our behalf. You make them you get them to speak the commitment out, then you get them to include it in their campaign literature, and then we have now raised the profile of the conversation about a parental authority at the municipal government level. And in this election, we have the opportunity to raise it at the federal level because it's a federal election. So I hope this is a good introduction to, again, gentlemen, this is a football, as Vince Lombardi said it. Everyone, this is an election. This is how elections work. And if we can remember that our vote has value and we are speaking corporately, we can stand with confidence in front of the candidates and the parties and say, I'm willing to exchange my vote for your commitment statements. What can you commit to with relation to these 4 pillars? And that's how we bring it up. Anyway, I hope that's helpful as an introduction. Obviously, we're going to talk more about it in more detail. We'll get into party and platform and different issues and all that sort of thing. But we are definitely wanted to get started on the right foot today, talking about the possibility of an election coming upon us very quickly on the road ahead. Okay, well, enjoy this short video, and then we'll come up. I've just got some great news to share with you as we wrap up on the other side of my desk, and I will take it back all the way home and make sure we shut down early before we cross over the hour mark. Anyway, all right, thanks so much. Talk to you shortly. Bye for now. Well, here we are at the end of the National Leadership Briefing for today. Thank you so much for your attention, and thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to serve you on this road. It is a great experience we're having. We're having lots of fun here. We hope you're enjoying it as well. We hope we're adding value to what's happening in your own communities, and we are looking forward to continuing to serve you. Now, the great news before I go, though, is that the National Leadership Briefing has launched a brand new website at nlbcanada.ca. So the website address is the same. Still can go there and register for future briefings. There's still lots of great resources, but it's got a new look, new feel, and functionality that we believe will better serve us on the road ahead as we grow our reach and grow the level of service that we can offer to everyone across the country. So please take people there, have a look around, enjoy your time there. And while you're there, I want to draw your attention to a button that we've got there, and that's the donate button. You know, you've never heard me say this before, but there's a lot of work to do on the road ahead. And the more we have, the more we can do with the resources we have. So let me know if you want to support the work that we're doing here by clicking on that button and partnering with us while you're on the website. Anyway, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for this opportunity to serve you. In the meantime, and until next time, God bless you, God bless your family, and may God continue to bless this great nation of Canada. Bye for now.